Alright, so today I'm going to give you a little bit of a breakdown of franchise, a little bit of help, some tips. I'm not going to necessarily break down every category in depth, but at least give you a little, give you kind of the Spark Notes version where you guys, if you're new to franchise, if you haven't played franchise in a while, if you just need a couple some tips and tricks along the way. And of course, if you guys have any other suggestions that you need some more in-depth things of like trades or free agency or whatever it is, let me know down in the comment section below. If you like these videos and they're helping you out, hit the like button. That way I know that you enjoy them, you want to see some more of them. And if you're new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button. So of course, follow my Twitter, that's down below, as well as my second channel and Twitch links. We should be starting to get some content on those soon, probably today. So let's hop into it. So of course, with the roster's kind of being a little wonky right now, where we're missing a lot of prospects, and you know, some positions are wrong, some overalls are wrong. The one thing you could do is go up here to the create spot, which is the top corner of the little paintbrush. You go up here, you select it, and you go to vaults, and then you R1 and you'll see rosters. So here you can just pick whatever roster you want. I'm still trying to find a good roster. I can't even download rosters. That's another bug that's going on with the game, where you just can't download rosters, or it'll crash your game if you try to download a roster. But once that bug does get fixed, what you'll do is you'll go here, you'll pick whatever one that you want, you'll hit download, and then obviously it'll download, and then you'll just hit R2 and you'll save it, right? So then you save it. I'll get an error message, so I'm not even gonna try. And then what you'll do here is you'll go to franchise. A lot of people don't know this. I didn't realize it at first. I actually had it pointed out to me, was that if you just hit franchise, it'll take you to your most recent franchise save. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? But what if you want to start a new franchise? A lot of people didn't know this, but in the bottom left of the screen, there's square, which is a more options button, where you can start a new file. You can load a saved file or download from the cloud. So since we're going to start a new franchise, what you would do is, if you're looking for the roster that you just downloaded, you'd hit load saved roster. And because I don't have any, they're not there, but obviously whatever rosters you have would be there. And then you would just download the one that you have. So since we're going to start a new file, we'll just hop into it with the current rosters, which are probably not going to be correct. Doesn't really matter. We're not really going to dive deep into it anyways. So here, we'll just hop in with the Cubs, and this is what we're looking like. GM contracts last 3 years. After those 3 years, you either keep your job or you get fired, depending on how well you do. So if you want to stay with the same team for the entirety of your save, just move it to off. If you want to have that challenge of the 3-year window, keep them on. Fantasy draft, pretty straightforward. You want it, turn it on. Same thing with allow free agents that are legends. If you want them, turn it on. Computer roster control. Up there gives you the breakdown of it. If you want to control the CPU's rosters, just turn it on. And then if you want CPU trading, which I would assume you want the CPU to trade within your franchise, leave this on. If you want the ability to have unlimited budget, turn this on. Force trades. Basically, you can trade your worst rated player for Mike Trout. Essentially, you can trade for anybody for anything. You can turn that on. Normally, I leave it off just because I want the realistic aspect of it, or I want that challenge of making trades. Designated hitter. Auto is what it currently is in real life. Off means no designated hitter at all. And then on means everybody has a designated hitter. And then the extra inning rule of the runner starting on second base, you can turn it on or off. So there you go. Normally what I do is I let everything set to manual, and then if I want to change anything once I get into the game, I change it. But if you don't want to control any of these things, just hit square and it changes it to auto manage. So just look at the list, decide what you want to control and what you don't want to control, and then just go from there. But like I said, normally I leave it at manual just because I like to have full control of everything. Normally in my rebuilds, I let the CPU handle scouting. If you guys need any scouting tips, I did make a video on it. What I'll do is I'll leave a link to it in the description. Oh no, I'll probably put it in the pinned comment, just because that's already one of the videos that I have out for tips. So if you need any scouting tips, go check out that video. But normally I'll turn this on auto manage for rebuilds, just because scouting does take quite a bit of time. But if you're trying to deep dive into franchise, leave it on manual. So with this is something I got to break down for you. The CPU will move players up and down from the minors and the majors if you start immediately in the regular season. There's also the chance that some players will end up on waivers. So to avoid that, and you decide what players you want on your 26-man roster, always start in spring training. always start in spring training, because otherwise, like I said, the CPU will get involved and they will call up certain players, and sometimes players that you didn't want called up will get called up. So just to avoid any mess ups with the lineup, always start in spring training. Always do it. All right, so here we go. The roster, pretty straightforward. You guys can see it here. It's your roster screen, right? You can sort the players, edit the players, release them, AAA, AA, single A. You can remove them from the 40-man, designate them for assignment. All that stuff is right here in the roster screen. Next up, the depth chart, the new addition to the game, the game mode. And I like this screen. I really do. You can see who's on a contract year, which is the little blue square. The red square with the arrow pointing up means they are a top prospect. And as you go through the years by hitting R1, you can see what players are leaving. And also the rating projections will change, or the ratings will change because they're projecting them to improve. So you guys can see as you move through the years, the players in your organization will start to change overalls. You'll see the new player, like the top prospects will change, the contract years will change, and this is only players in your organization that you can see. So as you move through it, you guys can see this here. So I think it's really cool. On top of that, you can also, offer an extension if you're in spring training or in the month of August and September. You can trade them. You can view the free agents that are currently available. So that's kind of the main thing that's going on here. There you go. Everything that's handled in the depth chart screen. Lineups, change your lineup. Pitching rotation, change your pitching rotation. Training is one of those things that I kind of feel like it's a placebo effect. It does help out, but that I don't think it helps out as much as I would like it to. So either you can set the training or you can let the CPU handle the training. Usually if you leave it on auto, the CPU will change the training accordingly throughout the year. If you set it to something, make sure that you don't just leave it on that one thing, because otherwise all it will do is train the same thing over and over and over again, and other attributes will take a hit because now you're not training those other things, right? If you just train your muscles, or if you just train your biceps, the only thing that's going to work out is your biceps. Your legs, you're going to have chicken legs. You're not going to have a chest. Like, same thing, right? And then budget. Oh, man. I'm so happy they changed the budget this year. Basically, it used to be a weekly system. Now they give you the yearly system on how much money you have, and the player salaries right below me, or kind of here, you can see how much you're going to have for the next few seasons, your revenue, all that stuff is all right here. It's a lot easier to understand. Oh, I love it. And GM goals. This is essentially what you got to accomplish to avoid getting fired in your contract. So there you go. All that is right there. Pretty self-explanatory. Free agents, where the free agents are. Trades, you make trades. Transactions, you can see the pending ones. Those are the ones that are the waiver claims. Completed trades, every completed trade that, or completed transaction that happens within the season. Free agency, trades, all that stuff. Player search, you can search what player you're looking for. Or if you're looking for like a power hitter, you can set a certain overall, hey, I want a first baseman with 80 power. You can search for that, or potential, anything like that. That's all right there. Roster history, you can see the whole rundown of every player that's in your club, how they got there, free agency, waivers, Rule 5, a trade, whatever it is, that'll all be in your roster history. And then the final one is contracts, where your coach contracts are. You can fire them and hire them, so you can see who's available for hire. And scout contracts are also there, where you can see your scouts as well as the available scouts there. So that's all there in the little handshaking acquisitions tab, or whatever it's called. This is the league category, basically your standings, stats, league leaders, injury list, stadium assignments. If you want to change any of the stadiums in the game, if you created a stadium, that's where you'll go to change it up. And then top prospects, you can see all the top prospects in the game. Settings, here we go. This is kind of important. So yeah, I might make a video on this, but at the same time I feel like that's gonna take quite a bit. So here we go. User settings. What I normally do is I go to sliders, and I always turn down the trade frequency, because if you have it on the normal frequency, you're gonna see trades like crazy. I'm talking Bo Bichette's going to be traded day 1. You're going to have Jason Dominguez traded day 2. You're going to have Vladdy traded day 3. Juan Soto might get traded. You're going to see too many trades. So I at least tone it down 1 or 2 bars. That's kind of the sweet spot, where you'll still see some trades, but you're not going to see the 1,000 trades that normally happen within the season. No other sliders are touched. I leave it there. The only other slider that I do mess with is in gameplay, and it's not a slider, it's settings, where I hit L1, it goes to general, then I hit R2, and it goes to injuries. I turn them off. A lot of people like injuries on. You can do that, but for my rebuilds, I turn off injuries and just go from there. That's really the only two settings and sliders that I change for my rebuilds, and I kind of feel like that helps me out, especially the trade frequency. That is the big one. That is the big one for sure. So everything else here, I don't touch. I leave it alone, and that kind of gives the breakdown of franchise. You know, you can offer extensions, you can do trades, whatever it is. You get to the regular season, everything else is pretty self-explanatory. I feel like that kind of gives you a rundown. If you want to add sponsorships to give you some more money, you definitely can. You would just go to the sponsorships tab at the bottom of the screen, view your budget, set your trade block. This is the best way for the CPU to offer you trades. Basically just add whoever you want and then what you're looking for. So if you want to get rid of Kyle Hendricks and you're looking for another starting pitcher, boom, you'll start getting offers for Kyle Hendricks. They'll most likely offer you starting pitchers or whatever other position that you check. So I've already broke down scouting, so I don't want to break down that too much. Trades are pretty straightforward. Make the trades and you'll be good to go. And I guess really the only other thing that we need to talk about is free agency. So let me get to that. All right, so once you get to the offseason, it'll show you who retires. You can move on by pressing circle. It'll show you who gets inducted in the Hall of Fame. Again, just keep moving forward. So exclusive negotiations, these are the players that you haven't signed a contract extension to and are becoming free agents. So again, if you feel like you don't know what to do, you want the CPU to handle it, you can hit square and it'll go to auto, and they will pick and choose who they want to sign and for what amount of money. Also, you'll see here in the bottom, you can see review staff, where you will go and see who left the team, whose contract expired. Also, if you want to fire a guy, go ahead and fire a guy and just get the best manager or coach possible. Normally for a manager, I'm looking for really good pitching stats. I'm noticing pitching is very, very important in franchise this year. For hitting stats, I'm normally looking for, I'll just show the hitting coaches that are available. I normally try to get coaches that have good contact and good power, and I really try to avoid coaches that have good bunting stats. They don't really help out, and I would rather just have coaches that have good contact, good power, good plate discipline, good vision. Those are kind of what I look for in coaches. So like this guy, yeah, he has -1 for plate vision, but I'd still pick him up because he's got power, plate discipline, and contact. So those are kind of the main stats. Like bunting, I'm not really worried about. I'm mostly worried about contact, power, discipline, and vision. So that's that. For pitchers, what I normally look for is any of the per nines. If those go up, I really try to favor those coaches. Clutch, yeah, that's important, but again, that's not kind of the one that I'm looking for the most. Velocity, not really worried about that either. Control's a big one, but yeah, I'm really looking for per nines to go up. This guy would actually be probably someone I consider, because the two main stats that I look for in my pitchers for sim style franchise is hits per 9 and walks per 9, and this guy covers both. On top of that, he's got good control. This would be a guy I would look to pick up. This would be another one. Good per 9s, a little bit of break, not gonna hate that one. Stamina, I don't care if I lose stamina, I would definitely consider this guy. So any pitching coach that has good per 9 boosts, as well as like a control boost, I really like that one. And sometimes if you can find one that also boosts clutch, that's a good thing to have too. Base coaches, I just look for positive attributes. And then farm director and manager, I usually try to favor the coaches that have pitching boosts, just because I've noticed that, again, pitching is very, very important this year. So if we're looking at managers, I would definitely consider someone like Joe Madden. I would consider someone like this. Yeah, the plate vision does go down, but he's got power and per 9 for the K per 9. Or who else here? Maybe someone like this where he's got contact and home runs per 9. But like I said, I'm noticing pitching is very important this year, so I would do that there. You can also rebrand the team, or if you don't want to do any of that, you could just sim to the next point of free agency and go forward. So I didn't offer any contracts in exclusive negotiations, so that means they're all going to be in free agency, which does suck, but we'll get to it in a sec. The 40-man, it shows you the best players you could lose in the draft. So these guys aren't on your 40-man roster, which means you have to look and see, okay, who do I want, who do I not want? So let's just say I want to keep Patrick Wisdom. I would select the 40-man roster. I would go to third base, and I would add him to the 40-man roster. Not every player that you can lose is visible right here. So as you can see, now Alcantara has moved onto the screen since I added Wisdom. Sometimes you just kind of have to hope that you're not going to lose someone good because it doesn't show you everybody. So you also have to kind of keep track of who you could lose. So always make sure you add people to the 40-man so that you can't lose them in the Rule 5 draft. Arbitration. So basically, just offer anybody that you want arbitration. I'm not going to break down what arbitration is. You can look that up. I don't want to get into the whole technical side of it. So what I would do is, if you want, you can offer them a full-blown contract, and that way you don't have to worry about it. But normally what I do is I just offer arbitration. I try to select an amount that I'm comfortable with, and I submit it. That way I don't have to worry about paying all these contracts. I used to make the mistake of not giving arbitration, and I would just give them full-blown contracts, and then I would end up broke and have no money. So just offer arbitration to the players you want. If you don't want them on the team anymore, what you can do is say, I don't want Matt Duffy on the team anymore. I don't want to offer him arbitration. What you can do is you can go up here to your roster screen. You can go to third base where Matt Duffy is, and you can just release him, and he'll be released. So that's usually what I do if I don't want him. Offer them arbitration, or you can just not offer him arbitration, and as you move through the offseason, he'll just get released. But so yeah, there's that. I usually just offer arbitration to everybody and just go there. And then contracts. Contracts are another tricky thing. Really, you just pay them whatever you feel like, and they'll either accept it or they don't. I mean, if you don't want to spend too much money on a player, then don't do it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But just make an offer. I usually, for players like this, if you go above 3 years, they're still pretty young. They don't want that. They'll go 2 years. And I usually try to leave it at 75% interest. That's usually the sweet spot where they will 100% accept it. So I leave it there. Players like Alec Mills, where he's at 5 years, I usually bump it down a little bit just because I don't really want to lock up a 30-year-old pitcher who's 76 overall with C potential. I usually just want him like 1 or 2 years, maybe 3 years. I'll do maybe a club option, and then I'll bump it down to where it's like that 75%, where it's that sweet spot, and try to get it as low as possible. So maybe like 5.5 for there. So as you go through contracts, you just really decide who you want, who you don't want. Try to pay as little as possible and go from there. And then free agency, just chuck out contracts that you want. Obviously with the new budget system, it shows you your pending offers. My safe assumption is I usually go about 50% of my available budget for arbitration and contract offers that I have to offer to my existing team, unless you have like no players in your team. So I usually go about 40 to 50% there. That way, so with that in mind, with the Cubs, I know there's a lot of big contracts, right? So it says I have 178 available budget, and I could say, hey, I'm going to probably spend about 40 to 50 mil in the team that I already have. So that leaves me, what, 100 mil to play with. So that's kind of what you could do. You could also just go to your budget screen once, wherever that would be, which is right here, and you can kind of see, okay, I only have this much in players, the rest are going to be arbitration and everything like that. So it's all there. It's all pretty much laid out for you. I feel like MLB The Show really laid everything out for you in terms of budget, where you can really calculate everything for once. They really changed the budget game. It is amazing. So contracts, just again, free agency is a little tricky though. You kind of have to offer like, you really got to get it all the way up, because a lot of the times, especially for a player like Trevor Story, Lindor, Syndergaard, they're going to get max offers. They're going to get full interest offers. So if you want a player like that, you're going to have to max out their interest levels. You're going to have to give them everything they want and make sure that they're fully happy to avoid them going to another team. Older players, or a player that's a little bit lower rated, maybe like a JBJ, you could probably get away with offering him maybe like a 2 or 3 year deal where it's only like 4 or 5 mil, where their interest levels are like 60 to 75%. It's a tough one. You kind of have to monitor everything as you go along, and then as you go through it and you get to the Rule 5 draft, we'll skip to that now, where you get to pick players that weren't chosen to the 40-man roster. Those players do have to stay on your MLB roster. So if you pick a player, make sure that you keep them on your MLB roster, or that you are going to use them for the MLB roster. So as we go through this, we'll get to my spot here. You know, whatever player I choose here, they have to stay on the MLB roster. So, like, I'm not going to choose a 56 overall because I'm not going to keep them on the MLB roster. So, whoever you choose here, make sure that you do want them on your MLB roster. And that's really about it. That's really about it. I don't want to break down every contract I'm going to offer. I'm not going to break down everything like that. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of how franchise works. I hope that was good enough. I know this video is probably going to be about 23 minutes, 20-ish minutes long as I'm looking at the recording. So I feel like I covered everything. I tried not to confuse you. I try to keep it Spark Notes version. I know 20 minutes is still pretty long, but I feel like I covered every base there on top of what settings I use and everything like that. So yeah, if I missed anything, you guys, you want a little bit more in depth on anything else, let me know down below. But I feel like that's it. I feel like I covered everything that you need to hear. Yeah, so again, if you enjoyed it, you want some more tips, tricks, and things along the way, let me know down below which ones that you want to see. On top of that, hit the like button. If you're new here, consider hitting the subscribe button. That's really about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.